Hello, I'm Noel Kingsbury, and with Annie Gelfoyle, together we run Garden Masterclass. Welcome to our YouTube channel. We put here the recordings from the session we do every Thursday evening at 6 o'clock London time, a practice we started during the April 2020 lockdown as a way of reaching out to the global garden and landscape community. We hope you enjoy this recording, but also please do check out our website for all the amazing range of information-packed webinar and workshop recordings we have. Maybe consider joining us because members get access to our vast archive of free material as well as discounts on the webinar recordings. We've also recently started a podcast channel on Substack. So we do a weekly podcast so that's a way of accessing a lot of our recorded material that you can listen to whilst you're digging or driving or watering or whatever else. So I very much hope you enjoy this recording and looking forward to keeping in contact.
Great. Okay, super. So hello everybody. It's 6 o'clock and it's a rather beautiful warm evening here in the UK. I think it's a little bit hotter in Portugal. And
Today's cooled down a bit, actually. It's only been 25 today, which has been wonderful.
Right. We are, well, it's sort of, it's high summer, isn't it? So we've just had a whole batch of live events, very, very hot and wonderful, with Dan Pearson and James Hitchmo. And in fact, next week we're at Surge Hill, but that is for a continuing course, which we will repeat next year. So, do have a look at that on the website, because it's a 3-part planting design course, which is proving very popular. And then August, we really don't have any live events during August. We have our Thursday garden chat continuing, and it's a good time to catch up on any webinars that you might have missed. But of course, we're busy planning for the autumn and winter. And these will go up onto our events pages as we finalise all the details. So we will start populating the events pages with these. There will be early bird discounts, so keep an eye out for that. And then Noel and Cassian and Nigel are repeating for the umpteenth time the naturalistic planting design course, which has been so popular. And that is up on the events page, and also there is an early bird discount until the 1st of September. So if you've thought that you'd like to do that and you haven't done it, really, I would urge you to do it. It's such a popular course, and it's over 8 months, isn't it, Noel?
It is, yeah. It runs from the very end of September until the first week of March.
Yeah, so there's it's well paced, is what I was getting at. So it means that you have time to digest everything and enjoy it. So yes, so keep an eye on the events pages, keep an eye on social media and what we're up to, and we will always keep you informed. So Noel, I'm going to go over to you to introduce our special guest tonight.
Yes. And by the way, actually, over the weekend, we had Ignacio Ribera from Madrid come to stay with us. And Ignacio runs Academia del Paisaje, which has been extraordinarily successful in the Spanish-speaking world at running, kind of doing what we do, really. Obviously, Ignacio runs things differently. No, it was really good getting to know him a bit better and to share ideas about what we do.
So they're really a sort of Spanish version of Garden Masterclass, really, aren't they?
Yes. Very much so, yes.
Yeah.
So it's Academia del Paisaje, and there's a huge amount of free stuff online, and they do courses and webinars. They don't do any physical events as yet, but a huge amount of stuff online, and it's been massively successful, which we're all very proud of.
Good.
So this evening we are indeed staying Spanish speaking with Cristobal Elgueta from Chile, whose name I first came across years and years ago. And every now and again, my dear friend Amalia Robredo in Buenos Aires says to me, "Oh, you must get Cristobal on. He really is the most amazing teacher." So we've got him on this evening, and at some future point, we may well be asking him to do a webinar because, he is somebody who really is working with an extraordinary range of plant material in an extraordinary country, but is working at things in a very, very organized and systematic way, which is really good to see. Um, well, I've been as far as Argentina, but I never got over the Chilean border, I'm afraid.
I'm surprised,
Um,
Noel. I thought you'd been everywhere in the world.
well, we ended up going to Bolivia and then back to Argentina. So, anyway, one day I will make it. No, most of us, of course, are aware that Chile is a very long, thin country. We tend to draw a bit of a blank on its plant life, and perhaps we scratch our heads and think of, oh, I don't know, Lapageria rosea or crinodendron. And we have a few of these sort of temperate rainforest plants in Cornish gardens where they make a rather wonderful show. But, let's face it, we draw a bit of a blank. So it's really good to have Cristobal on.
Mm.
He works in a truly amazing, very diverse country. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this presentation. But first of all, Cristobal, you better tell us how you got into plants and gardening in the first place.
Well, thank you very much for having me here. I'm honored to talk to you. Well, I started like working with plants when I was a kid. I mean, my family was was not a gardener family, but I would say they were like garden family. So all my childhood was around plants. So my mother, my father, my grandparents, I mean, they had a big garden, so they were always like working the gardens. And so I think that garden has been in my family for the last 120 years. So it wasn't possible for me to get rid of plants. And I've been always fanatic about plants, but not just about plants. I was fanatic of all the things around plants: beauty, diversity, insects, ecology, soil, everything. I think plants are really an amazing word, really. Wow.
Great. So that's if you'd like to start your presentation, please.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Oui. Sorry. Yeah. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am, where I live, because I think for us landscapers, where we live, it's such important for every one of us. So in a certain way, uh, the gardens we build are in a certain way part of our soul. That in a certain way, we 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 build gardens because we have them inside of our soul. If I can say that. So I don't work alone. I work with Macarena Calvo, which is my partner. And I think we've been very lucky because, I mean, we live in a very diverse country. So we have 14 different climate systems. We have mountains. We have a big coastline. We have like desert. We have temperate system. We have Patagonia. We have glaciers. And we even have some tropical areas in Easter Island. So we have a little bit of everything. But especially for me, Atacama, and especially the southern part of Atacama, has been very important because that's where we have, which is called the Deserto Florio. So every 5 to 10 years, we got some rain, and what is completely arid and brown just bloom, and it's incredible how everything changes in a couple of weeks. So that means that this is a very dynamic landscape, very dramatic landscape. And when you live in a dry area, in a dry land, normally you have very few weeks to do all the work. So you have to grow, you have to cover, you have to, I mean, take as much sun as you can because you need like energy. And you have a very little gap where you can bloom. And if you don't bloom in this gap with a lot of flowers, probably you will go to extinction. So everything happens so fast, and this has been so important for me because I do very dynamic landscapes. So for me, the garden has to change almost every 3 weeks. But when you work in like Mediterranean or arid regions, it gives me also a lot of hope because normally when you see all this completely dry land and just with a couple of rain, 1 or 2 rain with like 30 to 40 liters per square meter, everything will change so fast and you will have an amazing system that will bloom for 4 months. So it gives me a lot of hope because, I mean, especially when you heard about like climate change and all things that are happening and drought and all this kind of stuff, you need like hope because I think we sometimes forget that plants are 420 million years old. So heat waves, drought, um, climate change is nothing new for the plants. So we really have to understand that we have a very powerful tool to make amazing landscape, understanding how the plants work in a certain way. Okay. So all this like arid region and all this very dramatic Mediterranean has been very like important for us. And what we're facing now is that we're having longer droughts in Chile, and the temperature is not getting that warm because we still have the influence of the Pacific Ocean. So we're very thin country, so we do have a lot of like ocean influence. So we never get more than 35 degrees, which is very unusual for us. And at night you have 45 during the day, but at night you have 18 degrees. So it's a very nice place to live. But what we've seen is that we have less rain, but we're still very lucky because we really have a big mountain system. So you said, Noel, that you were in Argentina, and the border with Argentina is a massive a mountain system, which is amazing because we still have plenty of glaciers and we still get a lot of snow in the winter. So we still get a lot of water, thanks God. But in a certain way, I think that we landscapers, we have to understand more where we live, the weather we have, the condition where the plants will grow, and we have to start like matching the garden with where we live. So when I started making gardens, this was the kind of gardens I used to make. I mean, they were like a lot of flowers, a lot of lawns, some trees, probably some bushes, but they were really gardens that used to need lot of maintenance and also a lot of water. Labor was not a problem uh, because it was cheap. Now it's very expensive, but always the problem was like technical labor. So usually I started to understand that the problem, one of the biggest problems of my garden, especially when the COVID things came, is that maintenance was destroying the garden more than maintaining the garden, if I can say that. So most of my failure doing landscaping was that most of the gardens I built were they used to need a lot of maintenance. And I used to make gardens that normally need a lot of maintenance. So, on the other hand, when you think of like Chilean landscaping, this is very much of what you will see almost everywhere. So, a lot of lawns and with some trees. But the problem with landscaping in Chile normally is not design. The problem is that we really don't know that much about plants. So you will see, for example, Mediterranean plants planted in like lawn areas. So you will have like plants that are kept watered like all the year when a lot of these plants will need a dry summer, but you still keep them water them during the whole summer. So we normally have a lot of failures in our public space or even private space because we don't know how to use the plants and we're using like dry loving plants in the lawns, you know. And then a long time ago we started with Macarena, my partner. We starting. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to go very much to the hills to see plants and insects and all this kind of stuff. But we started working more in the nature to trying to understand how the plants grow, and we were very aware about how the plants combine. Because normally, you know, for example, that the plants will work in a system. For example, you can use some um, special shrub from my system in a garden, and you will know that the shrub will grow. But normally, it's not just that the plant will grow, but which are the plants that will grow with this bush. So I started to understand and work more about plant communities. So it's not just knowing that the plants will grow in the system where you will make them grow, but at the same time, it's not mixing all the plants. And I started to understand more, which is a plant community, especially giving a lot of attention in plant architecture. But finally, is plant architecture is because of evolution. So the plants a plant is not a bush because it just wants to be a bush, or it's not going to be like, for example, a small bulb because it just wants to be a small bulb. It's evolution. So the way the plants grow is because of all the evolutive forces that make the plant to be what it is. So we started to work more and we started paying more attention to each plant, trying to understand how they grow, and especially which were good companion plants. And we started to use that in our gardens. And then I was very lucky because I met Wolfgang Kircher, which is a German landscaper, um, which is an amazing person with a lot of knowledge. He came to Chile first because of natural swimming pool, but then he came after because of plant communities, and we traveled around the Atacama region. So we were just watching plants and trying to understand what I said, which is a plant community. And Nigel Dannett also came like 2019, and we make some expeditions, especially in the central Chile area. And it was amazing because you understand that Nigel Dannett, Jane Hitchmo, Wolfgang Kircher, and maybe you probably also a lot of other landscapers are understanding that the plants are not just beauty or a way they grow, but also you have to understand that plants grow in communities, and you have to understand how these communities work. And that's what we've done with also Mariela. We travel together normally around Europe and the States visiting gardens. But now we're not just visiting gardens, but we're also visiting like national parks, just watching and trying to understand where the plants grow and which are the companion plants and where the plant grows, which are the conditions that the plant has evolved in. Okay. And these are all pictures of the coastal desert of Chile. And you can see like huge difference. In some areas, you would have just ephemeral plants that will grow from seed every 5 to 10 years. But in other areas, we do have very like strong and evergreen plant communities because you have subtle changes with the soil, or maybe because you have more fog, or maybe because it's looking south, so it has less sun in our hemisphere. Or this is a special area where you have like 20 or 30 more millimeters. So to understand all this stuff is so important to understand how the plants work and where the plants will work, because I want to use them in my garden. And which is also interesting is to understand that how impacting is this landscape with a lot of colors, with a lot of flowers in people. So normally when you have Atacama blooming, you will see like lot of people. They normally take their car. There's a lot of tourism also, but you will see really people getting crazy watching at this. You will see them like just walking, smelling, touching, sometimes very respectful, sometimes not. But it's very interesting to see what happened to people when they're exposed to these like fields of flowers and fields of colors. It's amazing. You can see how they get more positive, happier, romantic even. So color is so important for us. It really changes our mood. So we've been paying a lot of attention, which are the color combination that really changes people's mood, for example. And we're trying to use that also in public spaces. And we are really trying to understand more in an ecological way which plants, for example, will be amazing for very perturbated areas, if I can say that, and which plants do need not can I say perturbated areas? Is that yeah? You need to turn on your microphone, Natalie.
Disturbed.
Sorry. Perturbation is a French word. Sorry, I mix the language, but disturbed. So some of the plants, for example, really need very disturbed areas. So probably I will use them in a very busy walking area, for example. And some plants do not like disturbed areas. So trying to understand that in a natural system is so useful to use that in public spaces, because one of the problems that you have, for example, in very disturbed areas is that, for example, some of the plants will die just because people walk where they cannot walk, but they do walk, or maybe because someone is going to take a plant and will steal the plant. So you can really build plant communities that will heal They're safe just because you're using the correct plants that will respond to the disturbance and will grow, for example. So we're making very resilient plant communities in public spaces. They've been very successful, but this is all the knowledge you get from nature normally. And the other thing which has been amazing, at least for me, because I was an insect nerd fanatic all my life, is that when you choose the correct plants, you can see that a lot of the amazing things that happen in nature will start happening also in the city. So these pictures are not from nature. These pictures are from downtown in Santiago. So you start to realize that when you make the correct decision of plants, you will see that a lot of very specialist insects, very amazing insects will come to the middle of the city. And that really gives me a lot of hope that we can really build very rich ecosystem inside of the city. And that means a lot of things. You can reconnect people with nature, but at the same time, you can have very healthy gardens because you really have an ecosystem that's working. So you don't have, for example, pests, you don't have diseases because you have like all the pest control, like living inside the garden. And you can go like further and you can see that a lot of reptiles and very specific animals start to recolonize, if I can say that, the city again. And this is amazing. I think this is one of the things that we have to do more in our cities. It's not just because it's beautiful, but the gardens can really, really, really be an ecosystem. But for that, you have to know which are the plants that will attract each insect. But at the same time, you have to know how to mix them because most of the time you want and you know which are the plants that will attract, for example, pest control. But you have no idea how to mix. So you make a wrong mixture. And in 1, 2, 3 years, almost half or maybe more of the diversity is gone because the plants were not made to live together, if I can say that. We're not compatible, if I can say that, okay? And the other thing that we've studied a lot is the dynamic of color in nature, because in our system it's very interesting that normally you will see very specific color combination in each system. So we have pink system, purple system, red system, yellow system, and it's amazing the color combination. So we've taken some of our alstromerias, which are native plants in my country. We have 100 of different species as our color palette. So normally I will choose one of the alstromerias that normally are wild in where I work, and probably I will take some of the colors of the alstromerias and I will make a new mixture with this color. And normally it looks amazing because I have to say that alstromerias are amazing. Okay, okay. This is where I live. This is who I am, and this is what, in a certain way, we've been doing for the last 15 years, studying more nature, trying to make to understand more plant communities. And this is what I used to make as a landscaper, like when I started, that were like very nice gardens with a lot of plant combination, with color, with structure, with, well, all the things that the garden has. But then very fast I realized that gardens are more than just beautiful plants, and you have a lot of challenges, and it depends very much on the place you work, because we're a very diverse country. It's not the same when you work in Atacama, which is a desert, than when you work in Patagonia, which is a temperate, cold, and very wet area. But in most of the gardens, most of the places I work in Chile, we do have a very like strong radiation. So I especially pay a lot of attention about radiation resistance, if I say that, because even if the central area of Chile is not very hot, because we never get more than 35, we do have very strong radiation, and that means that we do have big evaporation. So I was a little bit obsessed about drought. So trying to save as much water as I could because we were facing a big drought, and I started making very light water, non-drought resistant gardens. So I work a lot of years like studying which other plants communities that you can build that really need to be watered just once, or maybe I was working with, for example, with plant communities that need to be watered just once every 2 weeks, once a month, or once a week. Because in our system, we have to water the gardens because we have just 200 millimeters a year. So it's not enough to keep a garden green, okay? And this is a kind of landscape that we started building with Macarena, with a lot of like shrubs, herbaceous plants, with lot of color, a lot of bulbs, a lot of plant diversity, very drought resistant, low maintenance, etc. But then we were very lucky because we started working with vineyards. So we're a big wine exporter. UK is one of our important markets of wine. And the thing is that when you have to sell the wine, you have to, especially when you want to build your wine more expensive, you need not to produce a wine, but at the same time, you need to produce it ecologically, organically. And we started doing a lot of landscaping for vineyards. They were not just gardens, but at the same time, we were trying to work in an ecological way, especially because we wanted with Macarena to make them understand that you can really make an ecosystem. And then, for example, you can make pest control, water infiltration, and a lot of things, just making gardens that are more diverse and use more native plants or very non-invasive, well-behaved, non-invasive exotic plants. Okay. And then we started working, which was very interesting, in hotspot areas. So all the central Chile is a hotspot. So we do have a lot of diversity, but we have more than diversity, endemism, because my country is like an island. So we're separate from Argentina with the mountains, from the rest of the world with a big desert, with the ocean. So we do have a lot of endemism. And because of the nice weather, most of the people want to live in central Chile, which is the richest region, especially northern central Chile. So we started working in these hotspot areas, making gardens. And for Macarena and me, it was not just enough to make a garden. I think that as a landscaper, you have a big responsibility with the ecology of the place where you work. So we started making plant communities that were in a certain way restoring, see if I can say that, some of the places where we had to make the gardens. And that led us to work a lot more with plant communities. So we started at the beginning just making plant mixing, but after 2, 3, 4 years, the diversity was very low because we just put the plants because they were beautiful and they were like ecologically important, but we still didn't understand very well how to mix them. This has made a huge, huge change for us. And then we decided to make a lot of trials. Thanks God, I live in an area where there's a lot of neighbors that don't care about their gardens. So I started making them their gardens for free, but because I wanted to understand how to mix plant and to understand how you can make really long-lived plant communities that will need very low maintenance, and that you will keep the diversity the longest you can, understanding that when you work with plant communities, you will have a dynamic community, that some of the plants will grow at the beginning, the diversity will change because you manage the community, but you don't want to keep the community like in a static way. And then we started to make a lot of like plant combination, and I finally understood, not in 100%, but I did learn a lot how to make a really reliable plant communities. I understood finally architecture, drought resistant, um, disturbance resistance, and or disturbance need, etc. And then that has been amazing for us. And we've done a lot of different multi-layer, multi-cycle, different like planting, sowing, mixing, etc., which has been very successful. And we're starting using these plant communities in public spaces, and they've been very successful. I will talk a little bit about that. But we were not just making like plant communities because it's not enough. You want to make a mix of plants that will be that will be very ecologically friendly, if I can say that, but not just because you don't have to water them very much, which is basic for us, or maybe uh, it's not just because it's going to look beautiful, but it's quite important for us dynamic, because we do live in a dynamic country. It's very important for us color, but at the same time, if you're using water and resources, we think that the plants that you will use in the garden, they have to bring a service to like pollinators or animals or small mammals. So gardens are for humans, but at the same time, we think that gardens are for wildlife also. So we make a big research about all the plants that are really useful for wildlife, not just a native one, because one of the big problems here is that there's a lot of people that think that if you want to make an ecological garden, you just have to use native plants, but this is not true. especially when you work in urban areas, because a lot of the native plants will not thrive in a urban landscape. You have too many disturbance, so a lot of the plants will not live. They will die very, very fast, especially when you water them with our arid or Mediterranean or because of pollution. But you can still make amazing plant combinations with native and non-invasive exotic plants that can be really very ecologically rich. And we've seen that, which is amazing in most of our work. And the last thing uh, that we've been working on is not just dynamic and beautiful and ecologically. I think that most of the failures of landscape in my country, especially in public spaces, is that we have to understand that public spaces is really a very, very difficult place. And you will have an amazing problem with compaction. And we finally understood that we cannot use soil in a public space. It will not work. So we finally started to use like technical substrate. Yes, it's more expensive, but finally I will show you the difference. And for us, it's not a problem because we do have stone and sand everywhere because of our geology. So for us to make in other countries, probably to use technical substrate will be a problem because you don't have sand and stone. But our sand and stone are renewable because we have erosion from the mountains all the time, natural erosion. So we have all the stone and sand coming with the rivers all the time. And this is the difference in a public landscape after a year, same plant community, same plants, planted the same, almost the same month, same watering, same maintenance, but you see the difference with soil, with dirt, if I can say that, and the difference with tainted substrate after a year. So soil in the public system don't work very well. And the other thing that we finally admit is that you have to try to build a garden with very, very low maintenance, because if the plants survive the compaction, they will not survive the maintenance. Because we do have, a lot of lack in technical knowledge in the people that normally work with maintenance. And I have found this problem all around the world, in England, Germany, Argentina, or in the States. So everywhere I go, normally maintenance normally is a huge, huge problem. Not because you don't have people, but most of the time because you don't have technical skills. And I think that this will not this is not going to change. It's getting worse even. So we started working in public spaces, making some tests with a major of the city of Providencia, which is an amazing woman, and she allowed us to make some tests in public spaces using technical substrate, gravel mulch with these new plant communities. And after the year, the difference between the normal gardens, if I can say that, was so huge that we started working on a big scale. So doing and building lot of square meters. So finally, we teach the majors and people in charge of public spaces that you can build very strong and amazing plant communities, aesthetic, beautiful, colored, ecologically amazing, and at the same time with very, very low maintenance in a mixture between shrubs, herbaceous, and trees. Obviously, you don't have to cut the trees, but you can cut like everything. If you want, you can destroy the garden once a year and everything is going to grow. And we also understood that in our system, we do have to water if we want to have nice gardens. And even a lot of the very amazing native plants that we have, the difference between water and unwatered is amazing. So in public spaces, it's really hard to make people understand that, for example, during our summer, a lot of our plants will go dormant, for example, and they will turn yellow or brown. But summer is when the people want to use the garden, so they don't want to have a brown garden. So normally, probably for you in the northern hemisphere, you understand, especially if you are in a temperate zone, then during the winter, a lot of the plants will be brown, Annie. But if you're in a Mediterranean system, a lot of the plants will go brown in summer when you want to use the garden. So one of our problems using native plants was that we were not watering the plants in the summer, so that the plants turn yellow or brown, and people just take the plants out and change them for green plants that were not native. So we start to understood, we realized that we do have to water, The amount of water has to be very low so we can keep green, but at the same time, we don't kill the plants. So we've been working on that, and the aesthetic will change completely. So we'll have an amazing plant community between exotic and native, like green with flowers growing, etc. And the other thing that we learned is that because we're not that cold in winter and we're not that hot in summer, so we're very lucky because we can make our thin gardens two cycle gardens, if I can say that. So we can have a very interesting cool season growing plants, but at the same time and in the same place we can have amazing warm season growing plants. So we can have a very dynamic system that will completely change between winter and summer, and we can have like color, flower, like scents, pollen, nectar, and diversity. I mean, the whole year. And we're also working for harvest more rainwater, which is very new for us, and it makes a huge difference. And we've been working in a lot of different public spaces, making these plant communities that are completely different. In winter, you can see it on the left side of the presentation, and in summer. So same place, same communities, but one is dormant and the other one is working. So completely different garden in winter than in summer. And everything started with this project, which is very important for us. Where I told you we're working with the mayor of the city of Providencia. And when we started doing this, the goal was to reduce water consumption by 75%, reducing maintenance, but then 90%, it was more, it was 95 at the end. We wanted a garden that was like full year coverage with no yellow or not brown, never. Very dynamic and attractive, especially with colors, with flowers. We wanted to expand the plant palette. Normally in public space, if you visit Santiago or any of our cities, you will see very much the same plants everywhere. And there's a lot of amazing plants that are a lot more beautiful than the plants that we used to use, more dynamic and more drought resistant and more ecologically important that we can use, but they were not known. So we expanded the plant palette, and we started using technical substrate as a response to compaction, which is, I mean, for me, the biggest problem in cities. And the other thing was to increase diversity. So normally it was very easy to show that because we were competing with grass, with lawns that are not very diverse. But the amounts of insects that started to visit, now there's a Sheffield doctorate that made an amazing investigation on Chilean gardens, and we will soon see the results, but this system was the best in diversity. And this was the first trial in 2019, which was the second driest year on record. At the beginning, not very interesting. It was, I mean, a big challenge to make understand people that this system need small plants and need like gravel mulch. It was like very unpopular at the beginning, but after a year, it was completely covered and was incredible. So when we started, people said to us that they don't want this garden is horrible. Take this garden away. We don't want to see stone. It will keep everything warmer because the stone will be hot in the summer. And then in a couple of months, we're asking the mayor, this is what we want. Please build more, change my garden, change public spaces. We want to see that everywhere. It was incredible. And the mayor was crazy about that because it was like low water, low maintenance, a lot of flowers, a lot of new plants, etc. So we're starting making and building at the beginning, if I can say that, very shy. I can say that we started with very small patches of the cities, changing the gardens with these more diverse plant communities, also using some shrubs and trees. But it became more and more popular, and the mayor became famous. And then I also realized that lot of time we think that the politics are the problem, but I absolutely think that politics are part of the solution. So you just have to start to work with better politicians, and you can really, if you want to change the society, you need the politics. So it was amazing to understand that. And well, these are the same plant communities, and after 3-4 years, we've seen that they're still very diverse, very well covered, very low maintenance, very low watering. So it's been a really big success. not just with the plants, but also with the trees, the shrubs, and everything, and with the diversity. And because these tests were so successful, we changed the first big park, if I can say that. It's a linear park. You can see, Noel, that it's not very like amazing park, just lawn with some trees. These trees are 20 years old and they really didn't grow because, I mean, because of soil, which is strange to hear, but it's not because of water or climate. The problem was the soil. So we took part of the soil out. We add the technical substrate. We use the gravel mulch. At the beginning, it was very unpopular because, I mean, people thought that we were crazy. The system was very little known by this time. But 6 months after, I mean, everything started to bloom, to grow, and we started to have more people that love us, that hate us. For the first time, this linear park became a very dynamic landscape with, I mean, very scented garden with a lot of different plants blooming at different time of the year. And the garden is watered 34% that it used to be watered. So we save 1.5 million liters of water each month. And what was very interesting also is that all the trees that were for 25 years, like almost dying, they finally started to grow. But which is incredible is that we're watering a third that we used to water. So most of the time, with a lot of the trees in the cities, in our cities, the problem is not that we don't water them. The problem is the soil. So finally, we demonstrate that the problem in our public space is compaction, not watering or heat or whatever. Okay. Also, we made some measures about diversity, and for the first time in this area, we started to see lot of native, very specific insects that I didn't know that live in the cities, and the use of the park explodes. Now this is one of the most visited parks, especially when everything is blooming. And we also apply what we learned in native communities about plants that need disturbance, that plants that don't need disturbance. So in all the areas where you have more people like walking or footing or stepping over the gardens, we use some plant combination, including this plant that need disturbance. And what we've seen is normally that you have like garden destruction, and all these plants appearing in a couple of weeks and covering everything. So we've done a very successful, very strong plant communities that in a certain way is resilient and heals itself, if I can say that. So we're saving a lot of money replacing plants. We haven't replaced any plants since we built the garden. And which was incredible is that what I said, I mean, the trees with less water started to grow. And now in a lot of areas, we finally have shade, which is amazing because you have all this park cooler in the summer and not just sun and warm and very hot, uh, which is what it was the way they used to be. And this park was so successful that we've been working in a lot of different parks and in a lot of different cities and the cities. And what we're doing is that we're taking out lawns. We're using less lawns and more plant combinations. And we're using a lot of different plant communities with ruderals and shrubs and trees and etc. to have color, low maintenance, very dynamic landscape that changes very fast from one color into the other. But the most important is that it has to be beautiful. But if you don't care about maintenance, this is not going to work. So you really have to think in a plant community that can really be destroyed once a year and everything will regrow. And I mean, not destroyed, but pruning hard. Because if you have more complicated maintenance, the community will not, it's not going to work. You will, I mean, it's going to be a big disaster. So once a year, we take like the, how do you say the trimmer? The um, shrub, I don't know the word in English. This machine to cut the shrubs.
Oh, a hedge trimmer.
Hedge trimmer. So we take once a year hedge trimmer. So normally we try to respect the bushes, but most of the bushes that we use in public spaces are resprouting bushes. So you can really burn them if you want once a year and they will regrow because in their natural system, this is what can happen. Not every year, but we use just resprouting plants or ruder plants or long leaf plants. So you can really cut them once a year and be very aggressive with the pruning and everything will regrow and regrow and regrow. The plant communities will change their dynamics of some of the plants that will grow at the beginning probably will be lost. So this is what it has to happen. But we have at the end a very stable, nice, beautiful, ecologically drought-resistant plant communities that really, I mean, for the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen that in public spaces, and it's working. And the last thing I want to talk, and this is very much for landscapers, what happened a lot of time to us is that when we work in like public or even in private, we normally do very complicated plans, if I can say that. So normally when you see one of the plants that we do, that we make with Macarena, you will see a lot of small points, and each point is a different plant. So it's really almost impossible to build the plant, especially for the contractors. And not just for the contractor, but when you work for a city, normally after you build a garden, someone is going to come and will count every plant to see that everything was built in the way it was designed, because they have to pay, but they want to really pay. Uh, you have to have everything that was on the plan and the field to get the pay, to get paid. So imagine when you have this plant with a lot of different plants in a very complicated way. It's very ecologically nice and it works perfectly, etc. But it's almost impossible to be built. So we're doing now with public spaces, a lot of our plants are linear, as this one. So not just in linear park, but you can have like very big plant areas where we will make this kind of, I always call that the Tetris. You know the Tetris, the play? So we will have what we call the Tetris plan, where you have all this line, but everything is done, the plant combination, etc., is done in a way that is really easy to construct. So it will take lot less time than we used to. So for example, this linear park of about 4 kilometers was built in 2 days, which is incredible. It was planted in 2 days. Normally, I just put the plants will have taken longer in the old way. But now with this system, it's really easy, really fast, really save a lot of money, because we always face like budget problems. So we're really working always in ways to make our gardens cheaper. And once the plants, and we're using like, we change all the buying system, if I can say that. So normally the cities used to have a very stupid buying system. So we used to pay very expensive for each plant. So now we're paying like 25 to 30 or 10% of what we used to pay. So we're making a lot better planification. So we're building a lot more with less money. And for Mediterranean plant, this is a way we have to plant, and arid adapted plants also. So we need to plant very small. And in a couple of months, because we have nice weather and some watering, so and technical substrate, this is, I mean, between this picture and this picture, there's just 6 months of difference. So everything will grow very fast. We will have everything covered. We will have a lot of, I mean, flowers. It's very dynamic. And we just cut once a year. We cut back almost everything except the trees. And we really have, I mean, this garden has been amazing, how it works, how it blooms, the amount of water we're watering, like 25% of what we used to water. And finally, everything is growing, looks nice, it's completely covered. And now we got a lot of letters from people that drive every year, and they say, now I love the traffic jam because I can see the flowers. It's incredible. I used to hate using this street, but now I love to drive this way. Even it's, I mean, I go maybe slower, or I do get a lot of traffic jam, but it gives me time to take pictures and see the gardens. And it's so strange to hear, I mean, to read this kind of letter, but it's really amazing in the summer when everything's blooming, or even now in winter, because all the bulbs are blooming. That I mean, if you drive through this highway or street, you really, I mean, this is a little bit dangerous because you're paying more attention of the garden than to the next car, you know. But it's amazing to see how these kind of things can even change the mood of the drivers in a city with lot of traffic jam. This is just before the pruning in winter, so you can see that a lot of we were late this year, but you can see that a lot of the bulbs are just passing through the cool season growing plants. So in a couple of weeks we cut, and a couple of weeks after, everything is covered with different South African, European, not really Chilean bulbs because we still don't produce them, but I think this will change in the summer. And I think this is very much what I do. So there's still a lot of different projects that I can show you, but I don't know if we still have time.
Yes, let's see. I think let's see. Yes.
This is Vitacura, one of the other cities where I work. As you can see, Santiago is hills, 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 mountains everywhere. We don't have any flat areas, so we're surrounded by mountains and hills everywhere, huge mountains. And now we're working in a part of the city where we're trying to connect all the parts. So we have what is called an infrastructure planification, which was done by Daniela Casanello, which is an amazing forestry engineer that we've been working with in the city of Vitacura. And what we are doing is trying to connect all the parks with the river Mapocho, with the Mapocho River, which is the river that crosses our city. And the Mapocho rivers come from the all the glaciers that we have in the mountains, which are about 5,600 meters, so huge mountains. But this is what we call a biological corridor. So we're trying to connect everything with the river. Normally, when you start making landscape in these cities, you never start with the where you want to, but in the most difficult street. So we started working in a very narrow, horrible, small lineal park, because I mean the mayor of the city at the beginning don't want to take a big risk. They want to take just a small risk to see if the system works or not. And it was quite interesting because it is a very ugly street. The garden where was nothing, just like dying trees and dirt with no plants growing. And we make a very interesting plant community, very, very low maintenance. So the first pictures that I'm showing you here is just after the pruning. So we destroy the garden, and the people from the city were like really scared because I was cutting with the hedge trimmer everything with no pity. Everything was destroyed, but a couple of weeks after, everything like was blooming, growing, and they couldn't believe that you can really destroy the garden once a year. I don't care about the maintenance because I know that mostly all of the plants, even the trees, are resprouting. So you can really, you don't need technical skills. You just need someone knowing how to use a machine. Here we have some of the places that where we built the garden. We used a lot of different plant communities because we wanted to show to the major that you can really use lot of different plant palette. This is the middle of the winter, so you can still have a lot of flowers using like cool season growing plants. And it was very successful. So we started making more and more gardens. And this is a typical public space in my city where you will have just lawn and trees. These trees are like 25 years old. This is where I used to live. And after 25 years, the trees were like almost dying because of soil. Some of the areas will be very used by the neighbors, so we keep part of the lawn. But some other areas, no one use them very much, you know. So we take all the lawn out, and we will make plant communities. We use all the technical substrate techniques and the gravel mulch, the 10 centimeters of gravel mulch that I learned from James and Nigel, and also from Wolfram. A lot of these areas will need 5% of the amount of maintenance at a normal area, which is incredible. And we're using the maximum water we're using is about 60 liters per square meter in the summer, which is normally if you want to keep the lawn green in my city, you will need 6 liters a day to 4 liters. And with this, you need like we're using about 14 liters per week. So we're using half of the water you need to keep the most drought resistant lawn that we use, which is Bermuda grass, which is not that nice. We don't like that. We don't like Bermuda very much because it turns yellow in the winter. But if you want to have, like for example, Vitacura undinacea, you will need 6 liters a day. And if you want to keep this green, it depends very much on the plant community. But you can use 1 liter, maybe 2 liters per day, and you will keep everything green. So this is the way the park look now. So very like it's very dynamic, beautiful, lot of color, lot of flowers, and lot of very interesting bushes, very low maintenance, lot of insects. And when I see lot very dynamic, this is what I told you, that you will see that the plant palette changes completely every 3 to 6 weeks. So you will have maybe more red, and then you will have more pink, and then you will have pink and maybe some purple. And it has been very amazing for neighbors. So they really like now to walk and see all the flowers and how the parks grow. And it was great to show that to use soil in public spaces is a really bad idea. You really need technical substrate. So what I told you is that we make two different areas, two different parks, public spaces, pretty much the same plant community, planted by pretty much the same people. So everything was really much the same. The only difference was the technical substrate and the gravel mulch. And you can see that the difference after a year is dramatic, really dramatic. So the first one is wasting like people's money, and the second one, it was a little bit more expensive, but at the end it was a little bit, it was a lot more cheaper, because after 4 years the park is still amazing, completely covered, etc. And the last one is a park that I like very much. This is the very like drought resistant plant community. It's a mixture between plants from Canarias, from central Chile, Arizona, etc. It is called Chamisero. You can see how my city is, so it's really dry. If you use just native plants, this is what you will see in the summer. So everything will be, not everything, but a lot of plants will turn brown, especially the ones that are more interesting in spring. And that makes these kind of plants very difficult to be used, because people want to see green during the summer and during the warm season. So this is, the park was done in a linear way also. It was a very big park, so we used some strategies to try to, which is like a optical strategy, if I can say that, that you see a lot more green, that you really have. And we make a plant selection, and we put the plants in very specific situation, because a lot of our more interesting plants need a lot of sun to have an amazing blooming. The Mediterranean and the arid system don't have like shadow resistant plant with interesting blooming. This is a lot more in the temperate and deciduous system that we have, but not in the Mediterranean. So a lot of the plants that you can really use in our system do need the sun. But if you start putting trees because you need the shadow, you will have too much shadow. So finally, most of the plants will die. So we use a very specific way of putting the plants to try to have as much shade as you can in all the walking areas, but as much sun as you can in most of the plants areas, so to keep them like growing and healthy forever, and not having just mud and trees, you know. And what was interesting here is that we were working in a stone carrière, where the stone is taken to build like stuff, like a stone carrier. Can I say that?
Quarry, yeah.
Quarry is a stone quarry.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of, like, the stone was waste almost, lot, because you take all the stone that you can, but there's a lot of stone that is just used for nothing, and it was like, it was everywhere. So we used this stone to make stone mulch, which was designed not just because of beautiful and having less maintenance, but also for, this is a very important reptile area. So I really need this stone for bee nesting and reptile nesting. And at the end, we have this park, which is quite interesting, beautiful, blooms the whole year, very low maintenance. The water requirements are very, very, very low. And it has been very successful because you have this combination with amazing trees. So you have shadow in the summer in all the walking areas, but at the same time, you have this like blooming areas. So you have a lot of color, a lot of nectar, a lot of pollen, a lot of like wildlife, a lot of insects. So you have a completely disease-free garden, but at the same time, you have a lot of shade, because you need that to walk and visit during the summer. And just when what I've learned, that we landscape, we're very lucky, because we can really change people life. Where, especially when you work in public spaces, because when you work in like private spaces, of course you will change like the family experience, family life. But when you work in public spaces, you can really change a lot of people's life, you know. And I think that we have to be a lot more responsible when we're working in public spaces. I think that we landscapers, we need to study a lot more about plants. I see, at least in my country, that design and technical things about design, architecture, and all this kind of stuff are not the problem. I would say that the big problem of Chilean landscapers, our problem is plant knowledge. And when I mean plant knowledge, to understand plant communities, how to mix the plants, what they need, and there's not that much information. So I think that we really have to study more to make more reliable, resilient, and beautiful plant communities that are not just for humans, but also for wildlife. Reducing watering use, maintenance, etc. It's not that easy, but at the end it's easy. But to make a plant community that works, it really is an engineering. I agree with Nigel Dannett. I think that plant communities is a, if I can say that, an engineering. So we really have to study more about plants and to understand more how plants work in nature, to try to get as much information as we can to try to make our new plant communities reliable, resilient, beautiful, low maintenance, and amazing. This is what I think we have to do, and we have to keep ourselves free of ideologies or preconceptions. That's very important. It's not just about native plants or exotic plants. So I think that we can make amazing plant communities with everything. Just have an eyes on invasive plants, of course, but I think that we really need to be free of ideology and preconceptions, and we have to work freely with different plants. And yes.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Amazing. Gosh,
Yeah, wonderful presentation.
really inspiring. No, I think there's so much more we'd like to find out. Tanya was thinking along the same lines as I was. You mentioned several times these technical substrates. What is the proportion? Obviously, this involves a lot of stone or gravel.
I would say that the most important thing is that you have to work. What you need in a technical substrate are, I would say, like three things. The first one, no compaction. So normally that means that you will have to use a lot of sand and stone. It depends if I'm working in a temperate system or if I'm working in a dry system. But I would say that normally I use like 40% of stone, which is like half. I mean, 5 millimeters to almost 1 centimeter stone. 40% of coarse sand, and I will use like 10% soil and 10% compost. Normally, a lot of people think that compost is wonderful and that we have to use as much as organic material because it's great. And I would say that organic material is amazing because it has biology. I just need the biology of the organic matter. But most of the time, especially when you work in gardens, you have to understand that the organic matter will last in the soil like not very much because you have a lot of oxygen, water, temperature. So you will have a release of a lot of nutrients, and nitrates, which is awful, especially if you don't want to have like weeds, for example. So what I'm doing now is that sometimes I'm using 40% of stone, 40% of sand, 20% of soil, and I'm using 20, and I'm not using organic matter anymore. But what I'm using is like compost tea because I want the biology of the compost, but I really don't want the compost because I don't want the fertility of the compost. And it has to be very much in the area where I work. In the Mediterranean system and in the dry system, to have a soil with more than 2 or 1.5% of organic material is very unusual because, I mean, they're like stress tolerant systems. So the plants don't grow that much.
You're frozen.
Matter in the soil. So the most important is drainage by far. A lot more than organic material. So you can use like 40, 10 and 10, 40 stone, 40 sand, 10% of organic matter, 10% of soil, or I would say 40-40 and 20% of soil. In I mix everything to have, I mean, an homogeneous composition, not by layers, and it worked fantastically. And I would say when you plant a garden, normally I would use, I mean, in private garden, I normally don't use any technical substrate because compaction is not really a big problem. And with biology management, you can keep the garden with no compaction. When you work in public space, this is impossible. Biology works, but not as fast as disturbance in a city. So normally I will use just technical substrate in public spaces, yes.
So, Cristobal, when you have the plant, and it obviously comes in the pot, are you planting the plant with the soil around the roots? Are you taking the soil off the roots? What are you actually doing with the roots of the plant?
Normally, what I try to make, normally when I build gardens, I try to use very small plants. So, and it's like, it's almost funny because, I mean, when I started making landscape, the first public spaces, because, I mean, I didn't have any option of this new way of buying plants, if I can say that. I used to, I mean, buy the normal plants, and normally you have a lot of soil and big plants, so you need a huge track. Imagine when you work in a linear park where you have 4 kilometers of linear park. So imagine how many tracks you need just to bring the plants. But when we start working with very small plants, the first thing is that I can manage the substrate. So normally I use a substrate with a lot of with no peat at all. And normally I use a lot of pine bark, which is, we do produce a lot of wood. So we have a lot of pine bark, which is very good because it has a lot of carbon, which is great for a lot of things. And normally the spot is very small, you know? So I don't take the soil out. So I will use just this and this plant, which is a very small pot with this special substrate, which is mostly pine bark.
Great.
Low fertility. This is so important. Low fertility. So we think when you build a garden, we want to have a fertility, but fertility will bring a lot of diseases, and some of the plants that I use can shift from stress tolerant into competitive. And this is going to be a huge problem because finally, if you want to have a very diverse community, you can't have plants turning into competitive because they will wipe a big part of the diversity. So some of them can turn into competitive, but because I can manage the watering, for example, I will keep them growing the slowest I can. So because I want them in the community, because they can be, for example, a key plant, but I don't want them taking all the space just for them. You understand?
Yeah. I mean, your work is quite similar to Bettina Jaugstetter in Germany.
And Ben O'Brien in Canada have been the zeitgeist.
It's lovely to see the way that everybody is connecting. Absolutely. One question I had: ordinary people who are living in, say, Santiago or other big cities, presumably they're living in apartments with no gardens, just balconies. Do people have houses and gardens of their own, or only the very rich?
I mean, no, a lot of people, they do. I mean, for example, I would say more in rural areas. But we Chileans, I would say we're strange people, very strange. Lovely but strange. We love plants and we love gardens. So you will see, and because we're a dry country, because in Argentina it's different, for example, because Argentina is a huge country, but a lot of the people live in the humid region of Argentina. So they just have rain, and it's just pretty much the same in UK. So you have rain, so everything will be green most of the year. But here, if you don't plant plants and if you don't water them, you will have dust. And we normally hate to live just with dust, you know. We want green, we need green. So you will see that even very poor or even rich people in Chile, I mean, we plant a lot of flower, which is when last year Peter Korn went to Chile, we were like traveling around the rural areas, and he said, "Oh, you're very much like us, like Swedish people. you love gardens and you're gardeners. And I said, no, we're not gardeners. And then I started to realize that yes, we are, but it has to be that because we're such a dry country, a lot of the areas, that we don't want to have the dust. So we will plant and take care because we want green and we want color. So you will see very rich people with amazing gardens, but you will see at the same time very poor people living in houses or apartments, and you will see small plants with flowers and plants also. So I think we're not like the UK people that, because you're like garden champions, if I can say that, the national British sport. But I would say that yes, we do have plants everywhere, and we love gardens. We still have love to learn, and we have to do better at work. But you will see that we do take a lot of care of the areas we are.
Good.
Fascinating. Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. Well, Chile is on my list for sure. Yeah.
Yes.
It's an amazing country.
Thank you so much.
Whenever you want.
Yes, and it was absolutely wonderful. Anyway, Cristobal, that was beautiful. Absolutely, just such
Really
a beautiful
inspiring.
thing. Yeah.
So much to learn now. I think there's a, particularly in terms of really gritty urban planting. I think we've got a lot to learn here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm honored. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh no, it's lovely. Well, we must get you to do a webinar because I think there's a lot more to discuss. That would be great in the future.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. All the best. Bye bye.
You too. Thank you for assisting.
Bye bye.